One of the things I was thinking about with this, when it comes to fixing a car accident situation, they don't have a right to tell people what to do inside of their property. But if somebody gets harmed, they hold them responsible for what it is that they did that was harmful, right? Mm-hmm. So then to have the government say, well, we can't control what you do inside your vehicle, but if you're careless, we'll judge what your carelessness was and then make you pay restitution.
Thank you.
As we would with something like a thief or an ox goring situation, right? And say, okay, that's what we're going to do. And then hike up those type of things and watch people become more conscious of their neighbor. So for instance, the people who carry guns in America are some of the most civil people in America because of their responsibility. They have the ability to literally take someone else's life. They break less laws than police officers, right? Mm-hmm. And so having a civilian be responsible and think through the process of what it means to be a true citizen, to carry that type of power with them, they think through things. They de-escalate situations more than anybody else. They're just completely responsible. And so to say, because they know the punishment on the other side if they make a mistake with that, and they're like, I don't want to deal with that. Let me work within my responsibility. And sometimes people with guns would be the first ones to be like, I don't mind being punked. I ain't worried about my pride being all pumped up. I'm going to step back and be like, all right, man, you got it. Take it, go. I think if the government punished the crime or made people pay restitution, it would actually reduce the amount of recklessness inside of society.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. Because I think when you only do preventative justice, which is what they're doing, they want to fight over seatbelts and speed limits or whatever. When you only do preventative justice, you take the responsibility away from people, and that allows them then to be more irresponsible.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you actually,
which is why the deaths didn't go down.
Right. When you practice punitive justice and you actually give biblical penalties to actual carelessness or crimes, then that emphasizes personal responsibility. And responsibility in general is what makes people actually more careful, more thoughtful, because they know this is on me.
We think the other way around about this at the end of the day. Yeah. Nate, how you doing, man?
I'm living the dream.
Warriors tending gardens, Nate Spearing. Would you tilt your camera down a little bit for us?
Yeah.
Just put your head right at the top of
that. Expert advice from the
Carter, is it possible to
now.
slide the screen over just a touch because the camera's right in his face? There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Now I can see his beautiful face.
Now my camera.
Now you can't see. It's okay.
It's all right. So, I can see it. I do this.
So Nate,
you can slide it back a little bit further, Carter, if you want. There you go. How's that? All right,
that's good.
Cool.
We can all see you, Nate.
This is backstage.
This is backstage. Nate Spearing with us backstage.
And on YouTube?
Yeah, and on YouTube. By the way,
hi, YouTubers.
We don't normally drop this on YouTube because, this is for club members. But if you want to be a club member and not support Fox, because we just did a whole show on why you shouldn't.
Yeah. Because YouTube and Fox, they're just alike. They hate their audiences.
Oh, Gabe, you're so...
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you do.
When you trace the money back, it goes to the same spot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, all right. Okay.
Not over here, it don't. So that's one reason to become a Fight Laugh Feast Club.
Talking about Fox and YouTube.
Yes. I got you.
So, Nate, I don't even know how to introduce you because you do stuff. And, well, you
special forces.
You've done things that I haven't done. I don't even know what to say. How would you introduce yourself? You have a podcast. Yeah. We've done some training with you on Warriors Tending Gardens at the Fight Laugh Feast Conference in South Dakota. Would you tell us just quickly who you are and what you do?
So Nate Spearing, Nathan as my mama calls me. And I did 14 years in the Army in Special Operations, Ranger, and other things after that. Let's not give Gabe the mic. He always messes that one up, right Gabe? and he got out because I have 5 kids and initially started construction company, do some real estate. We're now doing farming because we actually got on the farming train about a year ago, maybe slightly before all the stuff that's happening with food because of Reed and Rory Groves and durable trades. So we went pretty hardcore on farming and local community. I was gone too much. I was deployed. I went 12 combat deployments and just wanted to be a present.
You were in the Air Force?
Air Force. Yeah. I was a rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard.
Which is why you're qualified to be here. So then this morning you sent me your podcast and I was like, bro, great podcast. You did a really good job. But you left just like this taste in my mouth for so much more. Because you have 5 years particularly of trained experience in rescuing hostages.
Yes. Yeah. I the later part of my career, that was kind of my primary focus was high value targets, but also hostage rescue missions. And I think I spoke about on the episode that, and I say it often, anybody can be trained to shoot a gun on the flat range. And you have steel, you have paper targets, and the conditions are kind of fixed and set. But when it becomes a two-way firing range, and then when you introduce non-threat targets or hostages and innocent bystanders, that's the most complex. About in the podcast that I dropped today, Life on Target podcast. I don't believe you actually said I did a good job. You just launched right into the critique, which is really actually why I like you. We don't have to, and that's how it was actually in the military. We talk about it all the time. We don't need to talk about what we did good. We're focusing on how do we get better. How do we, and so I'm actually excited because you brought some really valid critiques, and in some ways, I have a hard time envisioning and even just talking about what do we tell the average guy? How do we talk about the police officers and the way they responded and things? And so I'm looking forward to the discussion. But specifically, when you get into a hostage situation, when you get into a situation like school shootings or like church shootings or, violent guys in the parking lot because ex-girlfriend, whatever, there's just, it's a level of dynamic variables that just require a huge amount of training and is really hard to get the reps in to be confident to do that well. So
let me repeat a little bit here to make sure I got it right. So you were a hostage negotiator for the Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
Would Knox be a high value target that you would extract?
It really actually depends on the week. Because you never know which kind of associates he's going to have in a given week, who he's getting into, whether he's going behind the scenes and trying to uncover some stuff in the church. You never know.
Hey, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. If the SBC comes after me, you better come get me. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like the way that Dave has been going after people, it's going to be rescuing him from people that have Christian on their name tag, but are too scared to speak.
Well, we got Spearing, got our back,
Here, I want to work through this because you talked about the timeline in your podcast, but could you walk through kind of the timeline and then walk through what they did versus probably what you would do? I want to bring your tactical experience into this. And I want you to kind of break it down because when we were texting, I'm gonna read some of your texts. I'm just gonna let you know right now because you were very gracious to say, all right, listen, when people are in a shooting situation, everybody's good shooting one way, but when they got bullets flying at them, there's chemicals that kick in their body. They don't operate the same way, and their muscles are all flab. They don't have it. There's something else that has to go on because they don't get the reps in. Can you walk us through Uvalde and then kind of what they did versus what you would have done in that situation?
Yeah, I guess one of the things we talked about via text that may be worth saying is we don't know the details, like the final results of everything that happened hasn't come out yet. So what I don't have any particular access to anything that on this. I just basically searched the exact search I started out with when I was prepping for my podcast episode was Uvalde, Texas shooting timeline, I think is what I typed in. Because the news outlets will put out kind of this is what we know blow by blow. And then I pulled up, so I have, two screens in here I do construction. So I got estimates and things. I had two screens up and I put the Google Earth Street View up. I dropped the guy down. I took the timeline. They had the overlay in the timeline of the satellite imagery. And I wanted to get on the ground. And I just started going through the timeline. and what happened, and then moving the guy as best as I could to kind of see what's the terrain this guy went through, what's the situation, and
That's
just
scary.
to try to embody. Yeah, I mean, that's technology nowadays, you know.
Sure.
And I was just trying to recreate what does the terrain look like? What were they trying to contend with? And you know what the one timeline I read was he crashed into a ditch or a culvert in his grandma's car. This guy actually was violent towards his grandmother, and it seemed like she
Shot her in the face. He shot her in the face.
She called.
Yeah.
Shot her in the face, took her car, crashed it into the culvert. You can actually see it on Google Earth Street View. It's like one of those drainage ditch. He got out of the car. It looks about to be a 6-foot chain link fence kind of at that point. He goes over the fence.
Well, before that,
walks.
he shot at 2 people walking towards him.
Correct.
That were going to come and help
funeral
him.
Funeral home across the street. 2 men is what it says.
Yep.
Shot at him. They run away and call the cops.
Yep.
Okay. So conditions are set right there. There's 2 men. And I think, you know, one of the things that where we live in a comfortable society, one of the biggest problems we have is we have deputized authority that we have, or we've given the government authority we have to protect us.
So we don't take that authority when we see these 2 men ran away. They wouldn't call the cops.
Yeah, because ultimately, what's happened is we got in this global economy, and all of us are walking. Most of us in America, a lot of people in America, are walking through and thinking that's the cop's job. That is the politician's job. That is someone. But those of us that live in community, that live in church, that have authority, have a pastor, have a session, have other brothers walking with us, know that we are all responsible for each other.
Wow, Nate. That's
for how we treat each other, and how we treat our wives, how we treat our kids, and those of us that have submitted to godly authority in all areas of our life, submitted to our session, submitted to and that you know, David, about sphere sovereignty. And where there's overlap, there's things that obviously the government is good at doing. I
also know about sphere sovereignty.
Yeah.
No, but you're making a point, Nate, that I hadn't thought about at that time, which is like, you know, I'm carrying right now. I walk around. There's no way that he would have started shooting at me and we don't have a situation right there.
Yeah.
You know, you're making a very valid point right there that this could have ended right there. In that situation,
well, it could have ended.
You think about the situation. If you look at the ground, it is desert. There's nothing between you and the target. There's no kids. There's no car. It's open terrain.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's 1 minute after the crash, and they're going they're going over, like, oh shoot, a crash. They're going to go help. So these people
wanted to help.
Have what it takes in a narrow sliver of his, oh man, this guy crashed, let's go help him. Oh shoot, he's got a gun. Right. That just got escalated outside my authority. I'm going to call 911 and I'm out, you know? And then the timeline says there's a police officer there at the school that actually, the shooter goes over a fence, starts walking through the parking lot. So school day, obviously probably pretty full, more full than maybe what the Google Earth has on there. Packed full. Government never provides enough parking anywhere. So cars probably everywhere. He jumps the fence and is going through the parking lot. And the police officer that's there, either, I don't know if he works at the school or not, is actually responding because he gets the call, but he goes after a teacher that he mistakes. So what the timeline says is presumably he went past the shooter and then he enters the back door of the school. So that's about all I can see the terrain wise. But anyway, so essentially there's a teacher in the parking lot. Maybe that guy doesn't know. Maybe it's a woman, but essentially we have 4 individuals that have been in the vicinity of what's going on. And even if, like, I'm not even saying that those 2 funeral home guys could have, everyone should be carrying and they should blast them right there, because it's not as simple as that. But even if they probably ran inside, didn't have eyes on the guy anymore, because and that's, I feel like it's just like we talked about a little bit, that being shot at. People say being shot at. And a lot of times they just mean, I would like to think that he shoots the gun, but no way this guy decisively engaged him. None of them got hit. And the shot at is, in my book, is like bullets are like this far from your face. That's shot at. Yeah. Like, guns going off around you. There's a lot of soldiers that are back. Like, we got shot because we were driving convoy and we heard some rounds skip off or whatever. It's like decisively engaged, accurately engaged, and being hit by this guy. Yeah, and they just fled.
So at least the website I'm looking at, TexasTribune.org, that has this timeline, it did say that the police officers rushed to the door that the gunman used, which is closed. They enter and received grazing wounds from the gunman and retreat. So that's farther down.
You're moving ahead. Okay. He's not there yet.
Keep going, Nate. Keep going. I want you to push this.
So I feel like one of the things is this guy's probably a little ways away shooting at you, and obviously it's going to immediately, you're going to get that chemical cocktail. I talk about it some in I think Mental Toughness. I did a podcast about. We all operate at a homeostasis. God has knit together an amazing human body that's regulating all these different things continuously, and we all kind of have a normal operating heart rate, pH, our adrenaline, there's fight or flight that kicks in. There's all these things. And it's so they've immediately probably are experiencing a chemical cocktail they've never experienced in their life.
They just got shot at.
Yep. They just got shot at. Never occurred to them that this was going to be, they woke up that morning, I'll probably get shot at in the funeral home parking lot today. But one of the things you talked about, David, is as leaders and as Christian men, we have to think about the fact that there's a spiritual war going on all the time, and we just don't even acknowledge that. So that's one layer. The other layer is there's a real physical threats to our family, to our churches, to our schools. And a lot of people, and this is, you guys have seen that quadrant of soft men, bring hard times, make hard men, bring soft times, like that kind of thing. We're in soft times. We have soft men. They brought the soft times. Everybody's going around thinking this is not going to happen to me. It's never going to be a thing. And nobody, and that's one thing I feel like my background has done for me is I am very rarely not thinking about what if. It's changed the way I think. I've seen how nasty man can be apart from the Savior. I've seen the eternal capacity for destruction that is in the heart of man, not given to good, given to evil. And I've seen it happen. And so I look at man in his natural state, his unsaved state, through realistic eyes. I've interacted with suicide bombers. I've had rounds go right by my face. You see what false religion does to entire civilizations and societies, and how women are oppressed and things like that. So it just changed my optic. Now, that being said, I'm a Christian, and I know that my days are numbered. I cannot worry and add a single breath to my lifespan. None of us can do that. But in a sense, that just should give us confidence to go around. What have you equipped me to do today? But we don't think about death. We saw what happened with, look at all the church leaders that went and hid for 2 years because of the flu.
They got shot at. They got shot at.
They got shot at. And that showed our societies, and it showed that by and large the church is no different than the world. We're not thinking about what our death. We're scared of it, and we're trying to do whatever we can to add a little bit to it. Yeah. Instead of saying, what was I put here for? What is my mission in life? What has God specifically equipped me to do? And then I'm going to do that boldly. And like I said to you, I think in the text, like, am I going to get bullet holes in me? Am I going to live till I'm 85? I don't know. But one thing I'm not going to be a coward. Or not, that dude is going down. Yeah. That being said, that doesn't mean that in the funeral home you don't set the conditions a little bit better. Like, go back around the
Sure.
around the corner. You got a brick building there. Hey, we're going to go back around. Hey, there's two of us. Hey, go call 911. I'm going to keep eyes on him. Hey, he just went in that parking lot. The police officer comes down the street. Hey, red shirt. He's right there. I saw him. He's got the gun. Like, before he's even in school, directing the cops to it, whatever. Just a little bit more risk for yourself to vector the guy that's ready. That being said, that police officer on call that gets that, I guarantee you he hit a cocktail level as well. That call comes across. He's like, oh my goodness, I hope there's some more people around here, and that's not to knock the guy. Reality is in today's day and age as a cop, you should be on the beat out of school expecting to protect some kids. Yeah. Mentally, physically, and spiritually, you need to be ready for that.
So Pastor Toby had to go do pastor stuff, but I want to keep going for a minute here before you have to leave. Okay, so we're at the school now. The police officer just drove by. He had his cocktail. He's at least somewhat ready to engage because he goes after a teacher thinking that it's the bad guy. Keep going from there.
Yeah, so the guy apparently in that ship's passing kind of thing goes in the door. And I think I should have the timeline up. I looked at that same one, the Tribune timeline, but there's a lot of rounds exchanged after he goes in. I can't. I'm gonna see if you can pull it up.
I think it's over 100 rounds when he gets in. But there's also, he was apparently shooting at the school building as he's walking in.
Right. And the officer.
But to me, what made me think of this is all the chances that everyone had to act on this. I mean, the cops had already been called twice by the time he got over the fence.
Right.
And then a teacher called the cops from in the building as he's walking up.
And I want to say, though, I understand that the time period when the cops can show up and all that, I'm
not even blaming the cops. I'm blaming like the two guys that went and called the cops. Yeah. And then the teacher who called the cops from the school building and then doesn't like alert.
Well, and we talked about it, I think, at the Warriors Tending Garden training. There's these gates that you go through.
Yep.
You don't have this tragedy in this shooting without a number of things going wrong. And and we have to go way back to this particular guy's childhood. It was his father present. What is his, you can look at the social media posts and you don't see a joyful young man. You see somebody that's deeply troubled and that hasn't got the training, the admonition, the nurturing that is due to a young man. And we go back that far even leading up to that point.
You did such a great job with that, I thought, in your podcast, really going after that. So I did think it was good, but we have a certain relationship, so I'm going to talk to you a little different than I'm just going to be like, because I know you're getting the reps in.
For sure.
But you definitely went through all that and made a very good case for there's a failure of this young child way before we ever get to this. That there's a gate there. How about that? There's a gate that started in the home that we didn't protect well. But there is this, so we're past those gates, and that gate has bled all the way out into society now. Yep. He gets inside the school, the officer's there. I think the main thing I want to kind of get at, Nate, and I asked you, okay, so we can see the breakdown. Parents show up. The police are there. What was the timeline? That was 11:40. When
what happens?
So we got 11:35, I believe the first call was, and then after that, when he gets inside,
the first call was grandma. The second call was like 11:33. Yeah, you might be close for the second call. Yeah.
So I want to get to the point where you got this person inside. You have police there on the site. I want to get to your top down, your top bird's eye view, all the way to the ground view, because I think that there's a communication level that's there that it seemed like it was broken from what was going on inside. Because even who was the guy who was in charge? Did you pull up that article?
Yeah, the officer.
The officer that was in charge at the time that made the call said that he didn't know that he was in charge.
Let me see where that's at.
And so,
yeah, and that's the side of things too, is that there is a certain type of personality, and this is also put into, and I think is something in police culture. You think about all the body cam and the firing of police officers and the way that we've treated cops
makes them risk averse.
In some ways, they are scared. I mean, think about it. They're providing for their family. They got benefits. They're trying to get that pension. They're in this mindset. It's a job, and it requires a certain type of individual to just be like, I'm willing to risk it all for the sake of another. And even just when that may be who you are in practice or in planning of it, but there's also this risk averseness that is permeated through organizations, no matter how, even I'm telling you, even in the most elite sectors of DOD, it's how Department of Defense, am I going to get fired for this? Is this going to be something, am I going to cause an international incident? Is this going to get, and always that kind of be in the back of your mind. And it requires somebody that has something bigger than themselves they're committed to. It requires somebody that is willing to take, in some ways, the heat of public opinion, the heat of the department or whatever, and say, look, I don't know who was in charge. There were kids in there screaming. There's hundreds of rounds going. If I'm going to die, it's going to be it, so, and say, I didn't know I was in charge. That it literally could be, when in charge, be in charge. And it could have been any guy that says, let's give me somebody, let's do, and the more people, the better, in the sense, because you just rush this guy. And like I said, in the podcast and say now, that is the worst case scenario. Dynamic, close quarters battle with kids everywhere. Everybody's tension high. This is the most difficult situation imaginable. And that literally kind of seems like, reading through the lines for me, they waited for a Border Patrol tactical team, which seems like, hey, we got the best that we got around to show up and go. We're going to have to go.
So Nate, work this out with me real quick. Let's say that, from what I remember, from the most recent I can remember, and so forgive me if I get this wrong, but the officers started to pursue him because there's more officers there now. They take on some heavy fire and they retreat. But then there seems like there's a bunch of officers that started pursuing him again somehow. I don't understand how this is working together. But then they got to a door where he closes himself in, and they yell out, hey, he's barricaded himself in. And then the guy in charge says, hey, this is a hostage situation. But when you hear rounds still going off in the room after he's done that, are you waiting for your command? I mean, you've trained police stuff. Are you waiting for your commanders? What do you do? I want to know what Nate Spearing does if he's there. What do you do?
Well, I mean, we've actually talked about this before in some ways, and it is going to be situation dependent. And I'm not really super familiar with when something's being said, hey, it's a hostage situation. I'm not thinking that guy is mentally stable and is saying, hey, this is a hostage situation, is using this vocabulary. I'm thinking that there's police officers hollering it out. They know the guy's still in there. They know there's a bunch of kids in there. They're saying, hey, we got a hostage situation. They're identifying, because that's what essentially is do we switch gears and we say we got somebody we're going to negotiate with, he's not going to hurt anybody else, and we're going to talk him off a ledge, like you see the movies, in my mind, we're not negotiating with a guy that just blazed up the side of a school, shot at people in the parking lot, went in and killed a bunch of kids. But that is the lowest level guy on the ground view. I can't necessarily speak to how the techniques and protocols go. For sure, somebody's showing up, and I think I don't mentioned it, but it is easier, in this situation to let all the killing have been done by the bad guy from a percentage, and to not have been the guy on the ground that said, go, execute. Oh shoot, we killed 2 kids, So, cause you think about the headlines right now, they didn't go. Okay. Switch it around. They went in, they're being honest brokers of their skills. They're like, I have never dealt with this before. How do I handle this? I don't want to be the guy that shoots a kid. okay, let's get a negotiation. Like they're working solutions. No doubt they're working solutions. And that matrix is super complex with every single person at a chemical level where they've never been before in some ways. I mean, it's chaos. So I think that at the point where there's dozens and dozens of officers outside, and then there's a live stream on that timeline of a parent that's going up there. There's cops trying to get parents back because parents are getting fanatical. Like, my kid's in there. What are we doing?
If you're a parent, are you going in for your kid, Nate?
Yes, for sure.
No questions.
I don't care if it's not my kid. I'm going in. And I'm not, and that's the thing too, is it would be me kind of looking at the situation. This other thing, we've dealt with this tactically before when we're assaulting buildings in Iraq. It took us a little while. Oh, they know we're coming in the door. Let's not go in the door. Let's go in the window. Let's blow a hole in the wall. Let's do that. Like it even took elite organizations a while to figure out, you go a different way. You come into the, and so I'm looking at the situation. I'm stepping back and I'm looking at kind of where everybody is, and I'm finding a back way, and I'm moving pretty slow. Like at the point that it's kind of diminished down. It's not like right at the breach, because at the same time, I think I said it in the podcast, violence of action makes up for a lot of failed tactics. Just executing fast, immediately, taking the initiative, surprise, violence of action. And so the longer that the guy is in there and he's setting up and he's moving furniture around, he's killing more kids, he's losing, like, you lost the initiative, and that being said, like those 3 cops pulling back out, they could all been dead, maybe, or whatever. Maybe they were able to vector say, hey, this is the door, and there were some advantages to having not all 3 guys dead. But at the same time, I'm probably not going. If I went in that door, this is me, I went in that door, I get blasted. Okay, I'm stepping back, window left, window right. Okay, I'm going in the classroom window, one classroom over, I'm moving to the door, I'm shooting the guy in the back of the head. Because and I'm maybe even, hey, kick that door, and they making some noise. He's keep him, and I'm going around, because that's how it's battle drill 1 alpha, base of fire, flanking maneuver, and that's just what you do. So once have the cops at the door, hey, I'm maneuver Elma, I'm going around, and because one guy can't defend all axis approach, he can't be down the hallway, this thing, whatever. That
simple maneuver is crazy that those cops didn't do that. Even if they would have just left one cop kind of at that door, it would have kept his attention right there. That's
principles of patrolling, and cops don't do that. I mean, it's not, as a young Ranger, I was doing that with rubber duck, weapons hundreds of times a month with the team. And that, because that was the building block. Base of fire maneuver, base of fire maneuver, base of fire maneuver. And so that may not even be trained, I think that the more that we drill down into the reality is we cannot give the amount of training required for hostage rescue to every cop.
Yeah, but they're getting social justice training.
Yeah, facts. Facts. So Nate, it's something that I at that moment in time, I've had to think about a couple different situations. And when I think about these situations, for instance, I think about the George Floyd situation where I'm seeing them choke this guy. They got this knee on his neck. I don't care what he's done. He might be absolute guilty. I want you to be paying attention to how you're handling the situation. So I'm thinking about how do I engage the officers in a way that gets them to accomplish their goal and allows him to still remain alive, right? They can have a court fight about what was right and wrong later. But okay, so I want to think about that. I also want to think about this situation. But when I think about the George Floyd situation, I think from top to bottom the situation, and then I think about things that I should be doing now that make me a type of hardened, have a hardened approach to it, so that the reflexes start happening. So I do certain things, just like when I'm dry firing, I create situations, or like you did when you were training us, go run, get your tempo up. And so what are the things that you think that we can do, the average person around, the guy who carries his gun, who thinks he does a good job, doing this dry firing, and I said, what can we do? Basic things that get us to the place that we can have a certain type of mentality. Because I think the mentality is more. If you're there, you're gonna have to make the decision. And I think you've already made this. If I go in here and I die, somebody's gonna be with him, grab the shot, right? Like if I'm taking the first fire, cool, I'll breach the door. You make sure you kill him, right? Like whatever the case is, we're not backing up. We're attacking, and so you have to have something that builds you like that. And I have all the theological worldview. I think a lot of people do, but that theology needs to become something that is tangible, not just in our mind. What are principal things that we can do to help build that type of hardness?
Yeah, well, I think the theological foundation is a must, because there's a lot of people out there that have the tactics, even specifically from my background, that don't have the theology. I mean, they are stuck forever in the commando mentality and are having a terrible time. And that's something that we also are going to have to address as a church, those veterans that are carrying around the guilt of murder, like we read about in Proverbs, or, the guilt of this killing. They don't have the framework to deal with it. Yeah. So I would way rather we got we got to start with that theology, like we talked about in Warriors Sending Gardens, being the courteous words or else hard knocks. Yep. Not being somebody that gets in arguments, that's looking for a fight, that's just, hey, I'm calm all the way up until it's required. And you're cultivating a meekness and a capacity that's restrained by virtue. That being said, as a man, when you come out of the car or you come out of the grocery store, walk into your car at night with your family, if you haven't thought about, what if a guy comes out this way? What if a guy comes out this way? What if a guy comes out this way? What if you haven't just, not every time, not obsessing, not missing what your son's saying to you because he's excited about what y'all got at the store or whatever, like you're just coming this crazy, like can't ever enjoy life that God's given you kind of person. But you've thought through in your mind, how am I going to react? Am I going to kill a guy that comes out and says, give me your wallet? I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. Here's my wallet, man.
Yeah,
hey,
take it.
Hey, how you doing? Here you go. Take it. Like, if it, and that we talked about a little bit kind of scenario wise, it's a whole lot different. By myself, right, and my family. Yeah. But I'm staying calm the whole time. Because as you start to, if you're just right there and like trying to, you're not that great with your concealed draw and you just immediately go to waste the dude, maybe you get hit. So maybe just a pause, quick pause, think, breathe. I mean, legitimately training yourself to breathe whenever your kids are irritating you, whether you're maybe about to say something that you shouldn't say to your wife, whether somebody cuts you off in traffic. You can practice getting control of your emotions every single day of your life. That's what the Lord has commanded you to do. So being somebody that knows physiologically breath, that's why I had y'all all go down in the basement and we did a little bit of yoga in a sense.
I didn't do yoga.
Yeah, you did. You did. I think I got some photos.
I breathed, but I didn't do yoga.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We didn't do yoga. It was commando yoga. We were learning.
Whatever.
We were learning how to physiologically control your body's response to the stress, and it literally taking a second and breathe. Okay, I'm here. I thought about this. The Lord is with me.
Amen.
Now I blast them. Okay, whatever. Because whatever it is, it's you don't want to be in a rush to your death, and in some ways, I think that as a Christian, ultimately, we have to view this other person as a immortal soul. And somebody coming up to me in the parking lot saying, give me your wallet. If I blast that guy, I'm potentially setting up a meeting that guy's not ready for. And that doesn't mean that I don't blast him and I let all my kids and my wife be subject to his vile behavior. Because that's that thing about the turn the other cheek, and that we mix all that in with our theology, and we don't understand that. I don't get to stand by and let somebody oppress the downtrodden.
That's right.
Because I want to give them a track and lead them to Jesus.
Right.
I don't like, you've made these choices. I'm in a position of leadership, and you have made choices that brought here. And now I have to act as a man of God that is leading my family, leading my community. I'm sorry if the conditions, but in some sense at the same time, I mean, just start to pray even, because I believe, specifically in these stateside situations, I mean, my plan in the church situation, I'm closing the distance, but I'm shouting out the name of Jesus at the same time. Like as corny as it sounds, it's Lord is protecting us. And the same thing, that's where we don't get to, there's accounts of George Washington, the Indians, hey, take aim at that guy, kill that guy. And then saying, oh shoot, we need to stop shooting that. Something's going on with that man. Taking their jackets off, bullet holes all through it. There's so many accounts of men of God in war that cannot be killed. And that's my motto that I got from Jim Elliot. I'm invincible until God's through with me. And I get a new body later, And so that cultivating that mindset and thinking about that and really in our heart, believing that what our role is, understanding that. We get that from the church. We get that from fellowship. We get that from community. And then when we go out into the world, we are image bearers. And then sometimes that image bearing means that you come into these situations with God and with a firm understanding of authority and with understanding what's at stake, and you execute in a way that the world can't. And being prayerful from now until maybe that hypothetical point. Lord, if you bring me into this situation, prepare me, make my mind, you see it, Mel Gibson in The Patriot, right behind the tree. Lord, make me fast and accurate. Yeah. I mean, that is
teach my hands to war, Jesus.
Amen. And being ready for it.
I'm going to sum it up with this. I always want easy answers and I want practical things I could do. And I think those are all there. But you know what? One of the things that I think you said, I think there's two books I want to really, really focus in. The book of Proverbs, because it talks about a man being able to manage his attitude, his tongue, and his temper. And it takes somebody who's mature and steady and doesn't rise too high and doesn't go too low and knows how to use anger as much as he knows how to use any other tool or weapon. It's not something that just happens out anywhere. No, you conjure it up for that moment. Anger is not something that you use. That's why you don't be angry and sin, right? Like use anger for when it's time to use it, and then shut it off when it's time. So that takes something. I think Proverbs is a good place for. Also, the book on war. I can't remember the title, the author of that book, but on war. You talked about it in your podcast because it talks about the
on killing.
Thank you. On killing.
Yep.
Because it talks about the physiology and what goes on in your body. And one of the things that was so good to me growing up was my mama talked to me about puberty. So when it happened, I knew what was going on and I knew how to deal with it and I knew how to fight it. And I wasn't left there saying, what is going on with my body? No. I had awareness of what was going on in my body. So therefore I could act and resist the temptation because my mom had warned me about it. Outside of those two things, last word to you, you breathy, you like a preacher. So be short. Is there another book that you would recommend outside of those two?
Well, I just finished Why Men Fight. Or I think let me make sure that I got that title right. It was excellent. Or Last Stands, Why Men Fight When All Hope Is Lost by Michael Walsh. I think his introduction is phenomenal. And he talks about one of the quotes that he has in there: a country whose women lose their virtue and whose men lose their nerve. The Soviet Union is the most recent example of this historical truth. Soon vanishes into history. When every man is a lackey, a slave, and every woman a whore, the country is finished. A land of strong women and weak men is a dead country. And it's not necessarily wholly true of what we're experiencing right now, but I think that was it's a really good historical account of men fighting to protect what they love, and to see that historical view of all these times when there was no hope and they fought anyway and oftentimes died. And that's, I think, the hope is not to live a few years longer. The hope is to live in accordance with God's word, live obediently. And so being prepared and reading these historical accounts of what men do and understanding your role and being ready for it is essential. especially men in the church these days.
Hey, Nate, thanks for joining us, man. This was last minute, and I appreciate you, dude, and appreciate what you've done for our country. And you, brother, honestly, I'm not joking. I really did enjoy the podcast, but I knew you had 3 or 4 more gears in you. So,
I'm glad to be. I'm glad to be sitting down and talking with you. It's almost been a year since we've been in person. We're gonna have to.
That's true.
We'll fix that soon. 4th of July. I don't know.
Get out of second gear. Get out of second gear. That's all.
All right, I gotta go run.
It's hard for us rescue swimmers. We tread water.
Speaking of family, I gotta go move a house. So salute to your brother.
All right, man.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Bye, Nate.
Bye.
Armored Republic exists to honor Christ the King by providing tools of liberty to free men. New York State just banned body armor. Armored Republic is suing the state of New York in federal court to resist their arrogant war against your God-given rights. Mass shootings are tragic acts of evil that are best resisted by armed citizens and brave watchmen ready to fight back. The main violent threat to human life is not individual criminals, it's tyranny. In the 20th century alone, governments killed 169 million of their own unarmed citizens. Unarmed citizens are the stuff of dreams to tyrants and criminals. The Second Amendment is an acknowledgement of your God-given right to own a rifle and body armor. The 14th Amendment acknowledges the duty of the federal government to stop tyrant states from stealing your God-given rights. Legislators of New York, you are oath breakers. You proudly steal the rights of your people and oppress them without a second thought. Your law is null and void. It's unconstitutional. It is an offense against God, and there is no king but Christ. This is Armored Republic.